Hello everyone, this is Alex, and today I'm going to talk to you about orchestral voicing, a very neat trick taught by Rimsky-Korsakov, one of the greatest orchestrators of classical music history. And it's a very simple trick, but such a useful one. And this trick will allow you to balance your orchestra properly when you're just voicing a chord through the whole orchestra, because a brass instruments weighs a lot more than the woodwind instruments. And then how can you balance all of this with a string section of its own? And then you got the double basses, which are a little bit less numbered. So how do you navigate all this? Well, Rimsky-Korsakov got you, but there's a lot of criticism to its approach, but also I've been using it forever, but I'm gonna show you how to use it properly. So that's the point of this video. And I'm also such a nice person, I've actually made something for you today to present you this guideline, and you can download it. I'll put a link in the comment section, so check it out, download it for free, and have fun with it. Before you dive in, make sure you subscribe to the channel, make sure you consider joining as a member. I offer tons of advantages, all the details in the description below. Now let's get into orchestral voicing with Rimsky-Korsakov. All right, so this is the Rimsky-Korsakov guideline. So it's not a rule, and I do not say it's a rule. We don't talk about it as a rule because it's not a rule. It doesn't work like a rule. It's not a fixed rule. It's very relative, but it's a great tool to know about. So this guideline is mainly talking from what I remember about the woodwinds, the soft brass and the hard brass. I don't think I remember Rimsky talking about the strings or the tuba. These are things that I added myself from my experience with the orchestra. Or maybe he does and my memory fails me, but mainly the most important element about this here that I got from him is that one hard brass equals two soft brass. So in terms of volume, if they play in the same dynamic. So if one trumpet, in this guideline, if one trumpet plays forte, then you need two French horn to do the same amount of sound, the same volume of sound. Now you're probably saying, yeah, this sounds sketchy. I'm sure it doesn't work like that really well. You're right, but bear with me. Let's just keep going. So to have one hard brass of volume, you need four woodwinds. So 4 flutes, 4 oboes, 4 clarinets, or 4 bassoons. You can have 2 bassoons, 2 oboe, 2 flutes, and 2 clarinets. Theoretically, okay? So we're gonna come back to why this might not really work all the time, but let's keep going. So for one hard brass to equal 2 soft brass equal 4 woodwinds, equaled by 1 or 2 section of the strings. So I've seen 2 sections from some other people. Sometimes I feel like 1 section is more than enough. And also note that violin 1 is considered 1 section. Violin 2 is considered 1 section. And then viola 1 section, etc. It's not like all the violins are 1 section. So 1 or 2 sections equals in volume. The 4 woodwinds equals in volume. The 2 soft brass equals in volume 1 hard brass. So why is this so weird, and why is this not working really well? Well, it's because it's all dependent of the register the instrument is playing in. So if we say I have a trumpet in the super low register playing C4, and then I got a French horn that's playing in its high register, the C5. The C5 is very high for the French horn. And then you might just need one French horn to do the equivalent of one trumpet playing the C4, right? So that's already a twist in this guideline that's make us feel like it's not working, but it's useful to know that, because now I have this other factor, which is the register of the instrument, how tense the instrument is, how loud, and how can the musician can control the dynamic in that register. And you add these different things up, and then I just realized, well, I just need one French horn to play as loud as the trumpet playing a C4 if my French horn is playing a C5. So I'm already making good use of this theory. But if you think about two instruments playing in a similar register, it's not just the register, it's how can you control the dynamics in this register? Because, for example, the flute in the low to middle register can't play really loud. They can play forte, like if we take the C5, which can be played very loud by the French horn. Well, the flute, the C5, is just like a mezzo forte. It can't play forte because it's just not how the instrument is built. You have to put more hair, not more hair, but more air in the sound for the different harmonics to come in for the flute. So this C5 is actually just the first harmonic of the root note of the flute. So it doesn't take a lot of air. You can put more air into it, more loudness into it, because you're gonna obtain the higher harmonics. So this is what I'm talking about here. The flute in a middle register is not flexible, but the French horn is, and the trumpet is. The trumpet in the low register can't play super loud, so it's not flexible. There's no flexibility. So the flexibility is something important in this. And then the same thing, every instrument here is different. The oboe and the bassoons, if they play in their low register, they can't play soft. So that's kind of the opposite of the flute. The sound is very, very loud. If they play like the low B flat of the bassoon is super loud, and the low C of the oboe is super loud as well. And then we got the clarinet, which is very, very flexible in pretty much all registers. So if you want to go very, very safe with this rule, well, use the clarinet. You're gonna work well for this. But all the other instruments, you really got to consider what the different register they're in. And then the same thing for the strings. If you use a very high cello, very tense cello in its high register, it can play soft. But there's also this factor that the high cello has a very distinct sound, a very vibrato heavy sound, a very like a buzzy sound to it. As opposed to if you play like the same notes. So if I go back to my C5, if you play the C5 on the cello, it's gonna sound super tense and super individualistic, and as opposed to if you play this C5 on the first violin, then it's gonna sound super transparent because it's not very tense. It's like if you're a tenor trying to sing very, very, very high, trying to push the note, and as opposed to if you're a soprano just playing this very easy note for you to sing. So this is the guideline for Rimsky-Korsakov. It's very, very basic, but I use this all the time, more than you can think of. It's really one of the many things that you can use to understand and control how much emphasis you put on one note or another. So when I'm saying one note to another, it can be one note from a melody. If you're trying to have more timbre of a certain instrument in a melody, then you can use one trumpet and two woodwinds. If you take into account all of this flexibility of dynamic that we talk about. So you have a lot more trumpet in the sound and just a little woodwinds to double it and to add some color to it. The same thing can happen if you have just the one trumpet and like 8 woodwinds. So a lot more heavier in the woodwind section, and just a little pitch and a attack and brightness from the trumpet. And this is also a good way for you to orchestrate with the strings to understand if you're trying to double a line, double a melody with the strings, how much you want this other instrument to stand out, or do you want it just to color the sound of the strings a little bit. And now there's even the thing about if you're writing with different musical lines and you want one of the line to stand out, then you can use this and say you have one flute on one line, then you got two oboes on this other line, then you got two French horns on this other line, so you got 3 layers of dynamic. So you kind of creating this 3D dimension for your orchestra without thinking about the nuances and the dynamic yet. You're just thinking about how much volume am I gonna put into my music, and what's the natural dynamic that's gonna be created from this. And I put also the tuba in between the French horn and the trumpet. I think the tuba goes well with the soft brass and the hard brass. Again, this is not something I think Rimsky-Korsakov talks about, but I think the tuba goes very well with the French horn. It's got this round sound that blends very well with it. But also the bass trombones, they can really give some subs into it. There's also this factor, the subs. So the tuba, the contrabassoon, double bass, these are all sub instruments that takes a lot of space. So it's that thing that you just need like one double bass, one instrument or one section of double bass. It's quite different from the viola section, which you need 8 or 12 first violin to do the same as the double bass, because it's just a big instrument. So the tuba is kind of the same. It takes a lot of space in the sound because it's got so much harmonics that it really fills the concert hall, we could say. So you can think about that too. Same thing for the piccolo. If it's all alone up there, you're really gonna hear it. You don't need like 4 piccolos to do an equivalent for one trumpet that's playing in its even to a high register. 1 piccolo is usually enough. So the extreme register are, we could say, an exception for this rule. So keep that in mind. But now I won't leave you with only that, because I prepared a little example for you today. So this is a piano reduction for something very lively and fun. Let's have a listen first, and then we can talk about it. So it's just this quick little part here, kind of the beginning of something. It feels like, something Debussy or Ravel would write. I felt inspired by them for this. So for this, I really wanted to use an example of music that is homophonic first, that has some accents here and there, different variations of register. So I want this to feel like it's continuous. You keep the same energy, the same volume throughout the whole piece. So it's very important for when this appears, changing register, that it doesn't feel like there's a drop, or like I use, let's say, 10 instruments here, and then for this here, I keep my 10 instruments on here, and I add in 3 instruments in this low register. So I get 10 instruments here, and then I get 13 here, so it will feel louder. So you have to be careful for that to keep the same volume if you want something continuous like that. And same thing here at the end. I don't have a high register suddenly, so I need to think about that and keep many instruments here to balance with what I had before. Or maybe a trick, I don't quite remember what I actually did, but we'll see in a second. But a trick would be to take off some instruments for this part here, so that this part here doesn't feel like it's lacking volume, right? Okay, so first we're gonna see a full orchestration. So it's not crazy in terms of like I'm using all instruments, but I'm not using them all the way, except mainly for the woodwinds. The woodwinds are quite important here, and then I got my strings here. Let's first listen to the strings for this. So already the strings are pretty well balanced, we could say, and they are playing very much all of the notes. And note that I'm using only the double bass for the beginning here, chan-chan for the little punch, and for this part here, da-da-dum. So already adding kind of these lower notes from the original with my double bass. I could have considered sending this down like this, maybe with an octave like this. Actually, this could be good. And then unison here. But for this part here, I felt like I needed to take it off just to bring it back at the end here. And that's actually what I said earlier. I took some instrument off for this part here so that I can keep some low rumble for the ending here. So I think I started off with the strings here. So we see that we got one group of violins. So that's the equivalent if we go back to Rimsky-Korsakov here. That's the equivalent of hard brass, one hard brass. And then the same here, I'm using the second line actually, but here I'm playing in unison, da-da-dum, only for these notes. So we could see that this is 1, and then I have 2 on here. So, and what I mean by 1 is the equivalent of 1 trumpet. I'm always basing my calculations on the hard brass here. So I could say like 4 to have the smallest amount, which are the woodwinds, but I'm always using the 1 as a reference. So if you don't quite understand, we have 1 line here, 1 line here, and this is the equivalent of 1 trumpet, and this is the equivalent of 1 trumpet. Now these are merging together, so this is a volume of 2 on this line. And then back on the 1, and then we're still on 1 each here for all the way here. So this one is like that, and then we got 1 here, 1 here, 1 here. But these are playing the same note together. So I could say that we have this is 1 plus we could say 0.5, 1.5 section, the equivalent of 1.5 trumpet on this note here. So this one is included. And then we say this one here and this one here it's the equivalent of one trumpet together. And then this low rumble, it's 0.5. Okay, so already really much thinking about how to balance these notes. And actually what you see here, 2 on the higher note, 1.5 on the middle note, then 1 on the low note, and 0.5 on the very, very low note. So this is a good way if you're trying to do something like this. This is a good way to recreate the natural acoustics of sound. You usually need more instruments in the upper register, or more strength on the upper register, and less on the very low. It's just how the harmonic series works. You don't need much more on this low here. Otherwise, it's going to sound too rumbly. And if you go make this calculation down here, we got 2 on this low rumble here. It's actually an octave, so we could say we have one here and the one here. And then this same here, we got 1, 1. So we could say that with the combination of these, we actually have 2. So this and the bass trombone is equals 2. The tuba and the double bass together equals 2, the equivalent of 2 hard brass. But we got these as well. We got the bassoons who are playing. It's actually 3 bassoons. The 2 upper bassoons are playing the higher note, and the lowest here is playing this one here. So for this higher note, if we add in the 1 and the 2 instruments, we would have 2.5, because woodwind equals a fourth of 1 hard brass. So 2 woodwinds equals half a hard brass. So 2.5 here, and then down here 2.25. So 2.25. So a little bit less again on the lowest here, and that's always voluntary on my side. It's always something I keep track of. Usually less on the lowest note and more on the higher notes, just because of how the harmonic series works. So think about that next time you're doubling a line like this with trombone, tuba, double bass, bassoon, contrabassoon, etc. So if we go back to up here, I kind of do the same thing with these 2 lines. So these are actually only 2 lines. And I use, for the oboe, I use 2 on this upper line and 1 on this lowest line. So this means that this higher line here will stand out more. So actually, before we get too much in the woodwinds, I just want to add that I added some notes here. So for the punches, dun, dun, pam, pam, dun, pam, 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 I added these I lines here. So I can have my flute that's playing the punch, especially the punch, and then this little part here, and then exchanging these with my oboe, my clarinet as well. So this was just because the flute can't play this register very loud. So it's what we talked about earlier. This guideline doesn't work in this case because it's too low, and it can't play forte for this. The low F like this is just like a mezzo piano or something. So this is not gonna work well with this calculation, this guideline. As opposed to this is gonna work then. But you're probably seeing this and saying, well, it's not really the same as here. So we got 1, 1, 1 for each of these lines. But this here, this is all 0.25 of this calculation. So 1 woodwinds plus a full string section. So it's not quite the same. So we got this IC, this C that goes together, so that creates 1.25 kind of a weight to it. But we have also an oboe here, and also a clarinet here that playing together this C. So we got 1.75, 1 3/4 of loudness, we could say. And then this F on the horn, which is adding to 2.25, because a horn is kind of the half of a hard brass. So 2.25 on this. Oh, sorry, I'm saying this notes here, but it's actually the C. 2.25 and this one here. So this equals 3.25. So now we're into 3.25 with this C. And it's probably going to be the same for this A. This is going to be 3.25. And then this F is going to have a lot more weight to it because we have the bassoons. We also have our trombones here and our low double bass here. So earlier I said you shouldn't put too much weight on the low register and more weight higher. This is an example which you can do it because you're emphasizing the root note of the chord, in that case the F. And then for this one here, we have all of these instruments that disappear. So it's certainly quite a surprise when you only left with the strings and the bassoon. And actually you could consider adding the clarinet down here. So à trois. Then maybe my oboes here. So we keep similar, at least apparently similar dynamic a little bit. But we do lose a lot, especially with all of these brass. But we could say that it's more of an effect. Dum, pam, 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 dum, pam, pam. You get really a change in the dynamic between these answers, but it's still very orchestral. And I think it's going to sound good this way. So this is as an example for this kind of orchestral voicing with the Rimsky-Korsakov's approach of something that should feel balanced. So let's have a listen to it, and we're going to discuss it afterwards. Cool, huh? And actually, when the brass disappeared and we just left with the woodwinds, I actually feel like it's going softer a lot. And this helps with the transition with the ending. So the most impact we have from this are really the punches at the beginning. Pam, 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 pam. So I think this is cool and very dynamic and represent maybe the idea that I had at first. Now we just go and see something simpler. So let's start with just the trumpets. So for this, I started by using two trumpets for this, just the two trumpet. So we got the equivalent of one for each of these lines, pam, 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 pam. And then we got just the one here, and then pam, pam, together, 1 and 2. Then just the one from here. So for my trumpets here, I have each one of them is the equivalent of one dynamic. And when we get back to here, I go back to only one. So these two together makes like a 2 dynamic. And then I just got the 1 here. So the sound is going down here and then going back up here and going back to one line here. We have our 2 trombone, 2 brass here, so this suddenly goes back to a dynamic of 2. So dynamic of 2 here, dynamic of 1, dynamic of 2, and then all of this dynamic of 1 and back to a dynamic of 2. So there's already this kind of a playing that I'm doing. Now I want you to play with just a few instruments to show you some examples. So the IF here is bringing a third note to the sound, and I'm asking the only to be performed, and I want it to be only performed by 3 instruments, 3 flutes. So this makes that these 2 notes, the A and the C, are of a dynamic or have a weight dynamic of 1 each, and this one is 0.75 because 3 flutes. I'm 1 short of respecting the rule here, the guideline of Rimsky-Korsakov. I would need a 4th. So this means that this IF is a little bit less present in the sound. It's not bad. It's just something you should know, something you should be aware of at all time. And then when I go into this, these 2 lines are being played by only 1 flute, because down here I'm going back down, shrinking back down to 1 trumpet. But you're gonna say, well, the 1 trumpet, I mean, you need at least 4 flutes to do the equivalent of this here. Yes, it's true. But we have it's a choice actually. You can just have this I doubling of the flute being played by just one of them, and it's totally fine. You're gonna get the higher harmonic, a certain color to it, and actually it's quite high for the flute, so you might actually hear more of it because it's all alone up there. So maybe more of a like a 0.5 instead of 0.25 equivalent of dynamic for this. But when I come down here, actually, this is where I felt, well, this is too low for the flute, so I need all three of my flutes. So I've thought, well, this is maybe the time to change the ratio of all of these. So I'm going to bring back my clarinet for this here. And I decided to leave some of these other lines away for this, just to show you the example, but to show you that just thinking about how many instruments that you have all time and trying to think about this guideline can help you to create something quite dynamic. So let's just hear these 5 instruments together. I'm saying 5 instruments, but it's actually 5 group of instruments. So already quite interesting, but I wanted to do one last thing to show you why this rule is interesting, but it's very relative. We have down here all of our strings. So I wanted to bring back all my strings for this. I have all 5 group of strings. So for this rule, this means that it's 5 group of strings is a dynamic ratio of 5. So it's like the equivalent of 5 trumpets. And up here, let's say just at the beginning, I only have 2 here, a 2.75 with this compared to the 5 here. So if I would have kept it forte and arco, this would have been a problem. But I decided to try to put pizzicatos here and ask them to play a little bit softer. So this will feel a little bit more balanced with what I have up here, and it will complete the music, add in the different lines that I left out. So yeah, this was a little experiment, and I think it's interesting now because these are bringing in some color, but it still feel quite even, especially considering that the trumpet and the flutes are playing loud. So let's have a listen to this final simpler version.